My name is Mike Engle, co-founder and head of strategy at 1Kosmos, and I'm here to make you smile.
Who are you? This may seem like a simple question, but businesses spend billions of dollars to answer this question about their employees, users, clients, and potential customers. One Cosmos is a platform that allows businesses to easily and quickly answer this question and thereby manage access control. Think of One Cosmos as a digital identity that you carry inside your device, which allows passwordless access to your banking app or your employees' internal systems. Mike Engel, the founder of One Cosmos, is a serial entrepreneur, and in this freewheeling conversation with Akshay Dutt, he shares his lessons from his 3-decade-long journey. Stay tuned for the conversation, and please do subscribe to Founder Thesis on YouTube or any audio streaming platform.
Okay. So, while we are here to talk about One Cosmos, but I want to really understand your professional journey. Like, give me a little bit of a context. Like, where did you grow up? What did you study? How did you start your career? And, what brought you up to being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I mean, going way back, I grew up in Pennsylvania, and what changed my life was my parents bought me a Radio Shack Tandy color computer sometime in the 1980s, right? So I was probably 10, 11, 12. I don't remember exactly, but I got the Tandy Coco 2. And I was a bit of a geek before the term geek existed. So I opened up the book and
And
learned how to
which
program
which
in BASIC.
which year was this? When you were 10 or 11?
I'd say it was yeah, so I'm old. 1984, 5,
Okay. Mm.
right? And then I eventually got my hands on a modem and be able to connect to the outside world. So it started with a 1200 baud modem and connecting the CompuServe and then eventually AOL and bulletin boards and all that stuff. So I had an affinity for computers right out of the gate. And it's just I've always played with technology and one of the things I did back then was, I did the term hacking didn't exist, but phreaking did, Phreaking. So I would dial and try to find systems that would answer a modem and log into them or use 4-digit pins to get in, and it was kinda gray, not
Yeah.
stuff you should be doing, and
Right.
you could get into a lot of trouble today for it.
Yeah.
But it taught me how to think about getting in and securing things, and that kinda changed my life. Fast forward, not many computers in high school. I had a typing class, that was it. So I learned how to type about 110 words a minute,
Okay.
and then went to college and got just a number of computer-related jobs to put myself through college, and the rest is history. I moved into security right out of college and headed towards Wall Street.
Where did you join? Like, tell me about your career path also a bit.
Yeah, so, security didn't exist as a career back then. So I graduated college in '93. First job was in Philadelphia, just doing distributed systems, right? So migrating Novell to Windows and, just being the computer guy to make things happen. I migrated my way out of Philadelphia to Wall Street. So I landed a job at Merrill Lynch and really started focusing on Active Directory and securing, user accounts and account management and working with identities before they were called identities. Uh, Went even further, and that was in Princeton, New Jersey, and made my way up to Lehman Brothers in 1996. And one of the first things that I did there again was built out ways for users to access systems and detect when they were accessing systems improperly. And we went through Y2K and had to protect the firm from all the hackers that were going to come on 2000, right? January 1st, 2000, and that was quite a lot of fun. So, that was my path to getting to Wall Street, and eventually that turned into running the whole security program for both, uh, IT and, working on physical security technology as well.
Like access control for buildings and stuff like that.
Yeah, access control, IP video, biometrics. We were putting biometrics in data centers. You had to scan your eyes to get in. It was really neat. Robots that programming robots to go through the data centers and just look for bad people, things like that.
Wow.
My goal was to have the both IT, CISO, physical security, IT security coming together under one hat. Um, I thought that might be a converging trend. It turns out that it really hasn't, right? Not many organizations have physical and logical security under the same umbrella. So kind of glad that I didn't pursue that too long. But it's neat. It's neat to have both skills in the tool belt for sure.
Did you encounter any threat actors and any war stories from Lehman?
Oh, yeah, so many. I mean, one of the first really gold stars of my career was I wrote scripts to monitor the domain controllers because you didn't have endpoint protection back then. You had antivirus, and so I wrote scripts in Perl, for those that really, again, wanna date myself, and, it just looked for strange account activity, and I deployed this on the domain controllers, and then the alerts were all going to me. We didn't have a security operations team. This was in the early days, and Friday night, 11:45 PM, my BlackBerry Research in Motion pager with a little wheel with a keyboard on it starts lighting up. It says, "User strange user started doing strange thing." I'm like, that's really strange," but it's 11 o'clock on a Friday. So I called the help desk. I said, "Just call me and tell me if anything strange happens." And my phone rang 5 minutes later, and they said, "A whole bunch of bankers just called. They can't get to their files." So I logged into that domain controller, and I saw thousands of files getting deleted. And so I disabled the accounts and I called everybody. I basically called code red and got everybody in because somebody put a scheduled task on to do elevated privileges, and they were trying to take out the whole investment banking division.
Oh
So,
wow,
it could have been a lot worse. I caught it on Friday night. It didn't go until Saturday, Sunday morning, and we had everything back and restored from backup tapes, right? We were using tapes back then.
wow.
And, it was just a really there's a cool win, right? It's so often that we don't see the wins in InfoSec. So that was one, and then we got affected by a worm once that got into our environment and took the entire network down in 6 seconds, and
Wow.
we had to go visit every Cisco switch and manually reboot it. So, seems some really, that was back when you really worried about perimeter, which today is not as much of the focus because of the cloud, right?
Mm. So, you've used a bunch of very industry specific terms which a lot of listeners may not understand. Like, what is CISO? I'm just going
Yeah,
to keep
CISO, right?
asking you these terms, and we can just go through them for people to get some context.
Sure. So, the term CISO, I think, really evolved in the 2000s. It stands for Chief Information Security Officer. So today there's a chief for everything, right? I'm chief strategy officer now. There's chief revenue officers, chief operating officer. So the term CISO, though, is very specific to protecting the information and setting all the policies and typically managing a large teams that do that. So a lot of my friends that are CISOs now, I have teams of 200 people that just do security. So that's what CISO is, and it's a very high stress, high visible job in most organizations.
Yeah, I can imagine. What is endpoint protection?
Well, I think everybody has experienced it if they bought a new computer, and that's anything that protects your computer. Uh, and the endpoint means the device that we use. It's your Windows, your Mac, your iPhone, or your Android. And so, old endpoint protection was just antivirus, Symantec, McAfee, and that stuff is still around. And now they have more behavioral detection, right? Like my computer's doing something weird or looking for malware in different ways. So that's what endpoint protection is. And there's an evolution of InfoSec. It started with let's just get a firewall that stops bad guys from getting into my network. Because when computers first got connected, everything was open. You could just log in anywhere pretty much. and then we put firewalls in place, and then we
A
realized that we
firewall
need to pull.
is just something which requires a password before it gives you access.
It's your house. If you have cable or broadband internet, has a cable modem, right? Like, and it has a built-in firewall. It stops somebody from just getting in and connecting to your computer.
Okay.
Firewalls have been around, one of the oldest internet technologies, and that used to be an entire industry. That was like the hot industry was firewalls.
Hmm.
But today it's gotten just so intricate and interconnected that you need obviously much more than firewalls and antivirus.
So you were talking about the evolution. It started with firewalls, then.
Yeah. So there's been entire industries that have been popping up every couple of years. Like there's firewalls and antivirus, and then we got into very specific security technologies that do certain things. It might be I just detect bad things on my network. I see traffic, I see behaviors. There's an entire industry that popped up just to control what websites people go to. They're called web proxies. So like all these little solutions popped up to help add more security, more controls because the bad guys are getting more and more creative to try to get in and steal all of our secrets.
Okay. For like, let's say a company doing $1 billion of revenue, how many tools would the CISO be using for managing security?
Yeah, way too many. So what
Okay.
happened? Most CISOs, they have this urgent problem. I have to do. Everybody knows about two-factor authentication, right? That's the code that you have to go get after you log in. And so people go out and they buy all these two-factor tools and more tools and more tools. There's probably 200 to 400 security tools inside of a good-sized organization today. And they're trying to reduce that because every tool has to be managed. It has a license cost, et cetera. Yeah, there's too many, I think, is the answer.
Wow. Okay. Uh, so yeah, I mean, considering that everything is on the cloud, most of the cloud applications come with built-in security, right? Like if I'm using, and again, I'm giving a very, very simple example, but if I'm using Google for my email, and if I log into a new device, it'll automatically ask me to verify identity through a one-time password on my phone. So why does an organization need to go beyond what a cloud application already has available as security?
Yes, because Google, Microsoft, Facebook, Apple, the large companies, they do a lot and they have a lot of security built into their products, and you want to use as much of that as you can. But they're so big, and if you try to rely on just Microsoft to do your security, there's many gaps. What happens if you have a Mac, right? So, that's just one incredibly simple example as to why you can't have one solution provider for security. Another example is um, something called privilege access management. So you have your super users, your administrators. They're the people that get in there and can create and manage everything. There's an entire industry called privilege access management that puts really strict controls because those are the most important systems, right? And your Microsofts and Googles don't do privilege access management. There's billion-dollar companies that do it. So you have all these nuances because again, the bad guys get a hold of that one account and they can ransomware you and do all these bad things. So there is a need for, hundreds of security products, and then different verticals need different security applications. So for example, doctors, they need to walk up to a their medical screen and just tap it and work with a patient and walk away. So there's an entire product line that lets you tap a badge to that workstation and go, like just very simple examples, but that's why it's like there's it's complicated out there, and the big box vendors just can't do it all. They might do 20-30%, I would say.
Interesting. Okay. So you were there for the Lehman crash, right? Tell me about living through that and what did you do next?
Yeah, so Lehman was the darling of Wall Street, had phenomenal growth, and they got caught up into the real estate bubble and got overextended, and many of us were there until the end, till 2000 September 15th, 2008, and we thought this could never happen, right? It wasn't like WorldCom was complete theft by management, right? Complete abuse. This was risky bets. So, we watched it, the stock going down, down. Some of us bought a little bit more because, well, it's $2 a share. Why not? And there's a lesson in that somewhere. I can tell you about, risk management. But so I lost, 3 years of what are called RSUs, restricted stock units, which is a large part of my pay for 3 years. But
Wow.
you know, it's a lesson in life, right? There's worse problems I could have, right? I was very lucky to have a good job and to have made, decent money all those years. So, but I was done with Merrill Lynch and Wall Street and driving to New York City every day. So what happened was Lehman was heavily impacted by 9/11. We had 1,000 people in World Trade Center, and the plane hit. We had one employee that was in the elevator that died. But that heightened our awareness of security and being able to protect our employees. And so one of my projects when I got involved with physical security was how do we track our employees and be able to help them in minutes if we ever have another emergency? And so we were, far more sensitized to the physical presence of our people. So I got involved with tracking people when they came in the building and tracking when they left. Because in an emergency, everybody runs out the doors, but you don't know who left. And so
Right.
we normally you put your badge to come into a building. Well, Lehman Brothers had you badging out. So now when you run out of the building and if your badge was red, we know that there's only 400 people left that we have to find. So that was really neat. And one of the technology providers that I used was a company called 2Track. They were based out of London, and I really liked their technology. We were tracking our executives when they went to the Middle East. We were tracking the CEO's artwork in case it got stolen. Like we were tracking everything. So I got into tracking, and I decided to start a tracking company in 2009. And I started tracking vehicles and high net worth individuals for security purposes. And that company is called 2Track. It's still around today and has thousands of vehicles and hundreds of high net worth people that it tracks today all over the world. So it was neat. I learned a lot about trying to start a company in an economic downturn. Not easy, and made a lot of mistakes on how to grow a company. And between now and then, I've started two other companies, and happy to tell you a little bit about that as well. But just to wrap up on Lehman Brothers, it was really surreal when the bankruptcy hit and Barclays came and bought our building, and um, just a very unforgettable moment. Well, people carrying boxes out on their shoulders right out the lobby with all their belongings on September 15th.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. All the iconic photos show that. Yeah.
Right.
Mm. So, two track would have been like a hardware software product, not just pure software, right?
Right. Yeah. Little device you put in a vehicle, or I happen to have an old BlackBerry here with the keyboard. I was I was, I was doing a presentation. I got this out for effect, but we
Okay.
would put a piece of software on this. This was the only smartphone
Mm.
before 2008, right? This was
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
So 2Track had a little app that would track this, and you could push a panic button and call for help, and that was used by the some pretty important people on Wall Street.
Mm.
So that was good. I did that for about 5 years, and again, tracked all kinds of different organizations and people.
Yeah, I guess the consumer technology kind of made the business redundant, right? Like once you have a smartphone, then it's just a matter of downloading an app, and I mean the value creation as a company for you would have been very limited, right? Like,
If you tried it today, everybody has free apps that they can use to track their people, their kids, right, their children. But there's still, to your example before, or your question before, like why don't people just use Google or Microsoft or Apple? Well, today we still have high net worth individuals that want a very specific application. They want to prove how many days their executives stay in New York City or do not stay in New York City. Why? Because you have to pay taxes for every day you're in New York City.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I give them an application that costs a couple $100, and they can prove to the IRS that they were only in New York for 57 days. And so that saves them potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes. So it's a very specific application. It's like it's just different ways to deliver something that's commoditized in a way that adds value.
The vehicle tracking business by itself is a large opportunity, and there are like unicorns in that space,
Right.
who work with, let's say, fleet operators and use that telematics data to create, I mean, as the base layer, and then create more value added services on top of that and stuff like that. So that could have been a way to like build a unicorn.
It could have, yeah. If I had known what I know today about fundraising and scaling, growing product marketing, I was just, I was a security geek that started a company.
Okay.
I didn't have much mentorship in the area. And so, it grew to a respectable size, and I created jobs and provided good value. But I missed the tracking unicorn, for sure on that one,
Mm, okay. Okay.
but that's okay.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, what were the other two ventures that you did?
Yeah, so a friend of mine who was at Lehman with me, we got together and started, another security company called Bastille Networks. Bastille as in the, castle in France, or the band, if you like the Bastille band. And, what it does is it monitors your space for all of the wireless conversations that are happening. So right now around me, I probably have, you know, 20 radios and computers, laptops, phones, tablets, whatever. And organizations don't know what conversations are happening inside their own wireless environment. You have Wi-Fi, but there's so many other wireless things that Wi-Fi can't see. There's Bluetooth, Zigbee, and Z-Wave, and all this stuff. So we're using a technology called software-defined radio, which means I can program a radio to look for anything from, like, if you know megahertz and kilohertz and gigahertz, right? That goes all the way down to 60 megahertz to 6 gigahertz, and just see everything. So what we'll do is, the federal government has these areas where no cell phones are allowed, no Fitbits are allowed, no Apple Watches. We put our sensors and we show them what's going on. Manufacturing uses lots of wireless. Lots of bad guys could jam the wireless or detect, or hack into your data centers through the chillers, right? So it's nichey, but it was an unserved market using specialized technology that, has been very well received by the market.
Okay. What did you learn about scaling up niche businesses? How do you find the right audience for it? And you did it bootstrapped. So, how did you scale it up in a bootstrapped way? And just tell me a few of those lessons.
Yeah, there's a couple things. There's a book called The Lean Startup, um, by Eric Ries. It's like the Bible for how to figure out what works and what doesn't. And there's a couple. I think there's probably 10 Bibles, if or whatever your book is. And the principle behind it is build, measure, learn. So you build something, you measure its success, you learn from it, and then you pivot. So nearly every company I've been involved with, including Lehman Brothers, we've tried certain things, and you learn, you fail fast is a common term in entrepreneur world. And the more failures you have, the better, the more rounded you are, the more experienced you are about a product or yourself. And so, for example, at Bastille, we tried targeting Fortune 500 out of the box. And if there's a vulnerability in nearly every mouse that allows me to turn this into a keyboard. We called it mouse jack
Okay.
because when we detected it. And so bad guys can connect to the mouse, see all of your keystrokes and but we went to the Fortune 500 and we tried selling it there and they're like, it's hard to put all those sensors into all of my floors where all of my people are. It's too expensive. And that problem, there's a proximity. You have to sit outside the windows as a bad actor. And so we learned that that wasn't on the top 10 or 20 priorities at the time. And so we pivoted into government. The government really cares about this in an embassy, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so that's like an example where we could have spent 5 years and burned all of our money and that's it, company's out of business. So we pivoted early enough and we added cell phone detection and some other things. So, the market testing, there's something called the mom test. Have you ever heard of that?
No. No.
So the mom test, I might mess it up a little bit, but there's a book called the mom test. It's how to talk to your customers and learn, um, if it's just your mom saying, "Oh, that sounds great, honey. Nice job." You know why? Because we go test it all with our friends. And we ask our mom, "Mom, do you think this is a good idea? Do you think it's a good idea to look for, mice in Fortune 500?" She goes, "That sounds great." But you need to
Mm,
you need to figure out the right questions to ask so you're not wasting your time. And it needs to be, it needs to be like your mom doesn't give you the hard truth sometimes.
mm,
So if I had talked to one of my CISO friends about that, and he was like, "Mike, no,
mm.
you're not gonna sell that to me. You're wasting your time, right?" I asked my mom, she says yes. I asked my CISO friend, he says,
Right.
so that's
Yeah.
called the mom test. So that's really important. And I recommend everybody to check out that book if they're testing new ideas out in the marketplace.
Mm, mm. What about building sales muscle? Like, I mean, you're not a sales guy, right? Like you, but you must have had to learn how to sell, how to get customers.
Well, as soon as you start a company, you're a sales guy or girl.
Mm.
That's it.
Yeah,
You have to
absolutely.
sell.
Mm,
Every successful startup has founder-led sales, and you need to know. I mean, really, in life, aren't you always selling yourself, your ideas to your kids, to your wife, to your religious institution, you're doing fundraising, whatever it is. So I think selling is being enthusiastic about what you do. And so you have to sell. And so I did learn a lot about sales. Now there's all these structured sales programs and the methodology of a deal, and I hire salespeople to do the mechanics, but you have to sell. I'm selling to you right now.
yeah.
So it is really important. I think sales, the term has a bad rap, but some of the most successful people in life are good salespeople.
Yeah, absolutely. What did you learn about how to be a good salesperson?
It's asking as many questions to the other person as it is just telling them what you do. So you can have a conversation with a customer. It's more about it's a conversation, not a sale. So they kind of go hand in hand. And for example, if I and there's certain words that you want to use to open up somebody's mind, and I'll give you some examples. If I say, um, actually, how open-minded are you to learning about cybersecurity?
Mm.
How
Yeah,
open-minded are you?
there's no way I'll
There-
say no. Yeah,
There's only one answer.
yeah.
So you phrase quite, you learn a little bit, just some simple mechanics like that, or or how would you feel if I could stop bad people from getting into your environment?
Mm. Yeah,
I'd feel
yeah,
great.
yeah.
Right? So you learn a little bit of just conversational, there's a little bit of psychology in it, and I've really geeked out on some of that stuff. So I have this list of 20 that they're called magic phrases that I
Wow.
try to work into conversations. And so it's just learning over time what works, what doesn't. Talking too much, bad.
Mm.
Asking questions and listening, good. Right? So I'm stating the obvious, but it's a lot of things that technologists may not think about when they get started.
Mm, yeah, yeah, interesting. Okay, so tell me about 1Kosmos. How did that come about? What's the background there?
Yeah, a bunch of my friends that were CISOs, there's like 3 of them that kept telling me about this company and this guy, who's the founder, my partner in business over here. And so I'm like, I got to go meet this guy. And so I met up with him. Geez, going on like 7, 8 years ago. And he's an entrepreneur as well. His last company, he grew to over 1,000 people. His last company is called Simeo Solutions. And so I just like the guy. And the one of the most important things when you get involved with a company is liking your business partners. If there's anything toxic there, we've seen many stories where that just doesn't work. So the idea behind the company is all about identity. And if you think about what we struggle with today online, your parents or your friends and family trying to log in and do things, it's so broken. We're creating new accounts everywhere we go. We can't prove who we are. The bad guys know how to log in as us. And so the idea that we came up with is let's figure out a way to prove who we are that's easy and repeatable. And the company is called 1Kosmos, as you mentioned. 1Kosmos with a K stands for one universe. Cosmos means universe or world in Greek. And so the idea is you'll have one identity everywhere you go online. Now, when you go to airports or hotels, you have one identity today, right? You're who you are from your hometown with your documents, your driver's license, your passport, your Aadhaar card, whatever it is. And but online you don't have that. So what's happened in the last a couple of years is this has become a very powerful tool for us to hold and use a digital identity. And that's what we really started doing from day one is creating a way for you to prove who you are and use that proof over and over again to do anything online in a safe and secure way. And it's easier than how you're doing it today.
Um, uh, Give me like a lay of the land in terms of identity solutions. I believe there's also like a company called Okta, which is also into identity solutions, and help me understand the space a bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Okta is uh, they're an identity company, as is now Microsoft, as is yeah, there's ForgeRock and Ping, and a couple pretty prominent players. And of course, there's the companies that do things in airports,
So,
right? If you go scan your eyes,
uh, would you say that even like say Facebook, LinkedIn, Google, Apple are all identity companies? Because I can go to a website which will allow me to sign in with Apple, sign in with Google.
that's right. Yeah. So before those guys, you had a username and a password everywhere, right?
Hmm.
Um, and that's of course, very fragmented, and you're creating more data in these hundreds of systems. And then Google and Facebook, Microsoft, Apple became the gateway of the platform that we engage with. So now you log in with Apple, they make it really easy. There's one way to do it. The problem with that um, is they control your identity now. So if Apple doesn't like something about me or Google doesn't like something about me and they turn off my identity, my login, I'm done. And this has happened to people. And I'll give you one example. I have probably, 10 Gmail accounts, from different companies I've worked at and lots of people do. One of my accounts has all my photos and lots of documents. There's a story, and this is you can look this up online of a guy who uploaded photos to Google Photos, and Google interpreted a photo as having child, like, pornographic content. It didn't. But they have a policy, it's very, very binary. It says if their algorithm detects this, they shut your account down and you'll never access it again.
Yeah,
So
shucks.
you're basing your login with Google on this one rule, right? Maybe there's a picture of something over my shoulder in a photo that they don't like, right? And so when you trust your identity to these gateways, there's risk there. So personally, I use my email and a password, and then I use a password manager like 1Password to control that myself. So if Google's like, you know what, we don't like you, Fine, I'll move my email over somewhere else, but I have my usernames and passwords everywhere. And then the other challenge is, as a company, are you ever gonna trust login with Google to get into your company systems? There's
Mm.
no way, right?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
means Google could write the rules now to get into your corporate applications. So there's lots of challenges with it. That's called federated login. And what now, is happening is there's
What does that
distributed
term mean? Federated login.
federated, meaning, I'm trusting this one party,
Okay.
Facebook, log in with Facebook, and Facebook is gonna go send my information to 200 sites. It makes it
Mm.
much easier, but I'm trusting all that federation to Facebook, Apple, Google, and Microsoft.
Okay.
Now, Okta is a commercial version of that, but it's the same thing. So you log into Okta, and then Okta will send your information to Salesforce.com or whatever your business applications are. So they've made a business version of login with Facebook or log in with Google that you can kind of write your own rules and control. And there's no way Okta is going to turn it off because this is now that's what they do for a living, right? So
Mm.
Okta's made a great business, but I still wouldn't call them an identity company. I call them single sign-on systems. And the term single sign-on, if you've ever logged into your Google and then you logged in somewhere else with your Gmail account, it's like passing your identity to that other entity. That's called single sign-ons.
Yeah, you need to
Sign
sign
on
in
once
just once. Right.
and use it multiple times, yeah. So, these companies are single sign-on, and the reason they're single sign-on, not identity companies, is because they can't prove it's Mike Engle that's logging in, and that's what 1Kosmos does for a living, and there's a big difference between the 2.
What is the difference?
The difference is, I'm gonna hold my phone up to my screen and show you what I have inside of my application here, and the picture is worth 1,000 words. So I have, see if this works,
Yeah,
my
my
identity.
yeah, I can see it.
Inside of my 1Kosmos application, and you could call this, my, uh, Bank of America application, whatever you want. I have verified my driver's license, and that means I've scanned it, I've matched my face, I've done all these integrity checks, and now I'm in charge of it. So 1Kosmos doesn't have it, my employer doesn't have it, whatever. I have it, and that's the next wave of identity is letting people take their citizen identity or their whatever it is, their real world identity and owning it just like you own a driver's license or a passport today, and then only presenting it when you need it and with consent and permission. So there's a couple names for this technology. It's called like singles or self-sovereign identity is one of the terms, or user managed or user controlled identity. And it's really the same as when you go to the airport and you present your passport. You're in control of that. They can't take that out of your pocket and see it. And so that's the next wave in digital identity that 1Kosmos is pioneering.
What is the One Cosmos product? Help me understand that. Like,
Yeah, we call the platform Block ID. And the reason the word block is in there is because we use some of the best parts of blockchain technology to keep everything safe and secure. But the technology it really revolves around a few simple concepts. So let's say, have you opened a bank account or a crypto account in the last 5 years?
yeah, bank account.
Bank account, okay. You had to prove to the bank who you are. The old way of doing that in the United States is type in your social security number, right? Your national ID number, your address, your phone number, waiting a few days, maybe getting rejected, or, maybe you have to go into the branch. It's very painful and, for both the company and for the person. So what we do is we say, sit at home, scan your documents, and digitally transmit them to the bank. And that concept is called identity proofing. I'm proving my identity verification. And that's a multi-billion dollar industry. So we do that. We do it really well. We do it in a way then where when you proof who you are, you keep it and you save it for yourself, right? And there's a couple other companies that do that as well. Then we can turn this strong identity into a passwordless experience. So, have you heard the term passwordless getting popular anywhere? Is that ringing a
Yeah.
bell?
Yep. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So, passwordless, what does that mean? I log in without a password. It's that simple.
Mm.
And the way you do it typically is using a biometric. Biometric can be your face, your thumb, maybe a retina, or even your voice. And so that's a game changer. And the reason we can do that now, but we couldn't do it really 10 years ago, is because biometrics are everywhere now. You have a camera on every device, billions of cameras in every, that have been consumerized by, first BlackBerry and then Apple and Google. And so now I can look you in the face anytime and say, "Is this you?" And that's really what's allowing passwordless. There's two technologies that are allowing passwordless to get popular. It's that your face, your thumb, whatever, and a secret. All right. So this is like a cryptography thing, right? Where I can put a secret key and keep it somewhere safe that only I can get to it. And that secret place is an Apple keychain or your Google security area on your phone. And of course, Windows and Mac, they have it as well. Or there's even like this here. This is a little device, a USB device that I can plug into. That's a secret key. So this plus my face allows me to log in anywhere without even really touching the keyboard. Right? That's passwordless. And there's lots of different flavors, but that's kind of the gist.
Okay. Uh, is there a reason why Apple dished fingerprints? And only Apple has dished fingerprints on phones, right? Like nobody else has.
Well, I think the Androids do too. I have a Galaxy S10 that does a thumbprint reader. Yeah. And actually my Windows, my Mac laptop has a thumbprint reader. So
Mm,
um, they're they're getting popular, and I think people are getting very comfortable with using them. There's thumbprint and face scanners in cars now. You
mm,
can just unlock your car by walking up to it with your face, right?
mm. Okay. No, I mean, I was asking that, like, Apple is focused more on face scan as opposed to thumbprint. Most Android devices are still on thumbprint.
I see.
Is there like a relative advantage of one approach versus other?
Um, I think the way Apple's done it is really neat because they're using lidar. They're using like a
Okay.
form of it's not just the camera, but they can tell the depth of my
Mm,
eyes and all this stuff. So it's very accurate. It's fast. It works in the dark. So that's probably they've just gotten really good at it and
okay.
getting people comfortable with it.
You need hardware to have a strong face identity system, and
They
Apple
do.
obviously has hardware in place, so that's why they can go all in on face. Got it. Interesting.
Exactly.
Okay. So okay, like, so you said that through essentially you can first create an identity, and with that identity on your phone you can now do passwordless login to systems using 1Kosmos.
That's right. Yeah, there's a couple ways to do it.
Mm,
So I'll walk through three examples. Normally, you go to a computer system like your remote access or your login to your bank, and it's username, password, you'd enter, and then you go fetch a code or your app jingles and you say, okay. What we can do is we can display a QR code and you scan the QR code, scan your face, and you're in about 2 seconds. And there's a couple advantages to that. First of all, it's so easy, right? We all know how to scan QR codes now because of COVID and menus, right? You
yeah.
scan a menu, right? Um, the second is it's phishing resistant. So phishing, PH, right? Not with an F.
Mm,
For those that don't know what phishing is, it's somebody trying to steal your credentials. So they'll call you up or they'll send you an email with a link. They want you to click it and they'll steal your information. Because I'm reaching out and initiating here and scanning, it's much harder for a bad person to get into this loop, right?
yeah.
So that's phishing resistant. Passwordless, if done right, is phishing resistant, and that's great. Excuse me, because the bad guys know how to fish really well, right? The MGM hack that shut down the casinos a couple weeks ago was some sophisticated phishing.
So,
Where they
in a phishing attack, essentially, they'll create a replica website of a website where you normally log in, and if you're not careful, you will just enter your username and password and click on login. There might be like a spelling, minor change in the spelling of the domain, etc., so that you don't realize it, and that's how they get your password, and then they can misuse your password.
exactly,
Mm,
exactly. Yeah,
And
we
but
got
if you're using the QR scanning, then there is no way that I mean the whole ability to do that gets eliminated. Then.
yeah, because there's nothing for them to go get. I just got one today from the USPS. It said your package could not be delivered. Click here to fix it, and they were trying to get all my information, and it's very well done. Their websites are amazing. Now, if I knew that every time I log into USPS, I have a certain procedure, I have password lists, I'd look at that and be like, I can't even log in. I have nothing to give you. For example, 1Kosmos, I don't have a 1Kosmos username and password. There's nothing to fish. So when I go to log into my mail, and if somebody like, I'm sorry, you cannot log in as me unless you have my face
Mm.
and my authenticator on my phone, right? So that's a real game changer from a security perspective.
Okay. Um, so okay, now you have this app for consumers to prove their identity. What are the businesses who are currently accepting this as a way for you to log in? Uh, I mean, there are two pieces of this puzzle that you need to solve, right? You need to uh, have like consumers give them a way to prove their identity, and then you need to have businesses use this as a way to allow consumers to log in. So, what's
Yeah.
happening on the business side?
Yeah, so you don't need to prove who you are everywhere. For example, Amazon, they've never asked me for my driver's license. All they care about is I pay my bills with my credit card, right? And they ship me products. It's amazing. So for them, they're sort of passwordless, right? Because when I log in once, it stays like I don't know how they know who I am, but they're always there. But a lot of organizations now will pop up when I log in, username, password. They'll pop up and say, "Would you like to go passwordless?" I say yes, and then my iPhone or my Windows will just pop up and say, "Scan your face or scan your finger," and that's what you'll do going forward. So there's industry standard that's getting really popular. It's called Fido, like Fido the dog. We have it's a common dog name over here, I guess. It stands for Fast Identity Online. It's a nonprofit. It was formed in 2013, and all the big tech companies and companies like 1Kosmos are in there saying, we're going to help the whole world get rid of passwords. And so there's a standard. And so now Fido is built into every device you use. It's in your iPhone, your Android, your Chrome, your Safari, your Firefox. So what you're seeing is when you log into your existing bank or merchant, it pops up and says, would you like to go passwordless? Now, what are you going to say? Yes or no?
Obviously, yes, yeah.
You're going to say yes. And
Mm.
so you're going to, you're going to see this happening over and over again with more websites where they say, let's get rid of passwords. In fact, there's a FIDO conference going on right now up in California where all the tech people are talking about this. And because Apple, Google, and Microsoft are heavily invested, it will happen. So that's exciting because it means there is a future for us to get rid of passwords.
Uh, what is so? I mean, what's One Cosmos doing in the Fido ecosystem? And I mean, isn't Fido in a way replacing One Cosmos? Like you're saying that Fido will allow companies to directly scan consumers. Why would they need a One Cosmos app then?
A couple reasons. Fido right now is uh, all about the passwordless part, but it doesn't have identity built into it. So in that example, username, password, would you like to enable Fido? I didn't really prove who I was there.
Okay.
So a bad guy has my username and password. They could turn on FIDO. What 1Kosmos says is turn on FIDO if you have a verified identity. Ah, and again, you don't need to do that for, ordering a $2 razor, but for doing banking, you want verified identity, and we're really good at verified identity. And the other reason is, there's a lot of devil in the details on how you do FIDO. It's not just press a button and it's magic inside of your application. So we provide a very flexible framework where you can do FIDO in certain ways. So enterprises don't want to just trust Apple or Google with it's going back to that other example we had. They want to put very strict controls on their system login before you log into, your Tesla. You want to know that it's that person. So we bring a lot of higher levels of security to the FIDO experience, whether it's FIDO or it's not FIDO.
So, how do you prove that, like, I am Akshay Dutt on one
There's there's
Cosmos?
there's there's a number of different ways. In the United States, we have a standard. Our standards government organization is called NIST, the National Institution for Standards and Technologies. And so they have a rule set of guidelines where you say, here's how you prove who somebody is. You scan their credential, you match their face, and you verify their identity in the databases. So, for example, I have to prove I live at 123 Main Street. So we have built products that follow that standard. In Europe, you have a standard called EIDAS. You have a similar standard in UK and many parts of the world. So that's one way you prove identity is following the standard for document proofing, identity verification. The other way that can be a little easier is just verifying your phone. In some countries, you have to prove identity before you get a phone number. And so you've probably had the same cell phone number for many, many years, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So if I can prove you have your phone, I can prove that you are who you are. And another way, just as easy, is prove that you have a bank account.
mm.
Why? Because bank accounts are subject to money laundering checks, right? Anti-terrorism, all those things.
Yeah.
And
Then
so
know your customer norms.
know your customer, right? And so we have all these different ways, and you might want to just gently ask your customers to do these things because the big fear is friction. If you create friction when you're logging in and doing something, they're going to go to the competitor. So we've gotten really good at gently asking users to prove who they are in a way they're like, no problem. I really want to complete this transaction. So let's just verify your phone number. You don't have to bother scanning your driver's license. However, you're going to move $100,000 or change the routing number on your account. You know what? We need your driver's license. We need your passport, right? So we've created those custom rules in the platform that make it really easy.
What are the businesses who are using one Cosmos? And I assume you monetize through businesses, right? Like, this is not a consumer product.
Yeah, we have a good number of Fortune 100 banks that use the platform for their employees to get rid of passwords, right? Because passwords let the bad guys in. So an example would be one of the largest asset managers in the world uses our platform to log into remote access, right? So they log in from home and then they log into their Windows or their Mac with our technology because all they have to do is just press a button and scan their face. It's an amazing user experience. It keeps the bad guys out. In the consumer world, we have one of the largest banks in India that uses it to authenticate their banking consumers and their employees. It's kind of neat because they're using identity for both. We've served one of the largest telco operators in the world, Verizon, uses our product to create something called Verizon Identity. So there's no limit to the type of company that needs better identity, right? It's because it's so broken, and so we don't really limit ourselves to any particular vertical or industry.
Uh, so, is this a like? You said a bank in India uses it. Would the bank ask consumers to download the One Cosmos app, or uh, is it like a white labeled solution that you've built for them, so consumers don't know that there is a One Cosmos which is powering the technology?
We support three models. You can go get the 1Kosmos Block ID app and just use it. Um, and some organizations do that, especially those that are doing it for their employees because they don't want to manage an app. In the consumer world, it's more common for organizations to get our SDK, our software develop, our programmers libraries, and build them into their existing app. So when you go, an example would be if you go to the Amazon app and Amazon wants to prove who you are, then they call our library, and our library does the identity verification part. So that's the second model, and the third is they can call our APIs, right? So they can just reach out to us and ask questions and say, "Could you just go verify them and tell us yes or no?" And so we support a very flexible, we call it developer friendly journey for people to embed this into their existing applications.
Okay, and the business pays per identity verified or something like that. Like, how do you monetize?
There's a couple ways. First of all, the price of it, it's priceless, right?
Mm.
Sorry, I couldn't help. Um, that's like a MasterCard joke. So, you typically there's 2 ways. It could be transactional. I need to prove who you are one time, and then, they save it, and that's, usually only done once or twice over a couple of years. And then the other is, per user, per year, or per month, because they're constantly using the system, right? How many times a day do you log into your computer?
Mm.
20. So we'll charge, X dollars per user per month, and they get lots of benefits from that.
So, for an organization which is using this for their employees, you would in a way be replacing Okta.
No, Okta does single sign-on, and they do it really well.
Okay.
And they do some passwordless too. So there's a little bit of competitive nature of our product versus Okta or Microsoft. But again, they don't do the operating system. Microsoft and Okta don't let you go passwordless into Mac, right? Microsoft does some Windows, but they don't do remote Windows machines, right? So it leaves still a lot of opportunity where the way we think about it is Okta, Microsoft, they're here and they have all their applications and they do that really well, right? They've been doing that for 15 years and Microsoft for 40. We sit up here and we say, let's prove who this is. And so Microsoft is going to let you into this system right here, but it's a high security system. So let's go have 1Kosmos verify their identity because we don't do that,
Mm.
right? And so that's a very nuanced difference between the single sign-on and the identity provider that we are up top.
Uh, so you like, how do you do the operating system part of it? Like, that I cannot log into my laptop without using One Cosmos if I'm working for a company which has adopted this. How does that happen?
So if you're using our technology to log into Windows or Mac, when you go to the login screen, you see username, password, and we put a little button on the side that says log in with passwordless.
Okay. Okay.
So we put a little piece of software on the operating system.
Okay. And this is uh, Microsoft has worked with you for this, or you've created some way in which you don't need to work with Microsoft to put in that button?
Yeah, we create the software. Microsoft, they digitally sign it. They authorize us to put it out there, and they do that for lots of providers. So there is you can't just have anybody writing software for Microsoft, right? So
Okay.
yeah, there's a permission model.
Okay. 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 Got it. Got it. Okay. Um, Interesting. So, I'm wondering, for a country like India, where Aadhaar, which is your offline identity, is also increasingly becoming your online identity, and India has this DigiLocker app through which you can have a digital Aadhaar, and um, so. would that not be what you're trying to do? Like,
It's similar, so this problem exists in every country. They don't have a digital presence. In fact, Adhar is one of the best in the world, in terms of its exposure and its scope, right? It's ubiquitous, right? But we have tried scanning Adhar cards, and we do it well, but people laminate them, and they're not very high quality, right? There's all these, and then you get reflections. But, what we would do is be able to read the Adhar card and use that as one source of truth. So in that digital wallet that I showed you, I can simply have my verified Adhar right there, and then I can transmit that to somebody. And I know there's, again, a bit of a competitive nature because Adhar is allowing banks to log in with your Adhar card, right? You mentioned the digital locker,
hmm,
but it's complex. There's people complain about limited access and registration restrictions. So it may only cover a fraction of the population. If we can do Adhar and everything else, it allows an organization to be more flexible. It's kind of similar to what you were saying. Why doesn't somebody just use Google or Microsoft? Because
hmm.
we create other paths, options, exception processes for when it doesn't work. Okay, well, let's just try. Maybe let's use their passport, right? Or their is there an India driver's license as well as an Adhar,
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
right? So we could possibly consume that and give you more options and flexibility.
Mm. Okay, okay, okay. Uh, how are you? Like, tell me about the revenue journey. What kind of revenues are you currently at, and help me understand a little bit about like the customer acquisition journey. What were the early wins over there, and just take me through that a little bit.
Yeah, I think we've been really lucky. They say timing is everything when it comes to startups or being successful. If another popular book is Malcolm Gladwell's Tipping Point, where he talks about Bill Gates happened to be at the right place, the right time, had access to a mainframe, and that just created this whole world for him, right? Same thing with Steve Jobs. And so we were lucky that we latched on to identity proofing and authentication very early. Lots of companies do authentication. We're seeing now our competitors that only did authentication and passwordless say, "Oh my goodness, we really got to go do some of that identity verification stuff now." And they're just starting now. One of our biggest competitors just started doing that last month. We're at the right place, right time, and we've been on a amazing growth trajectory because of that. And so I can't give specific numbers on this call without talking to the legal powers that be. But the model that you want for maximum fundraising and valuation is something called a triple, triple, double, double.
Oh,
In your
okay.
early years, you want to triple your your growth every for 2 years.
Mm,
So if you make $1 million your first year, you want to make 3 million, and then you want to make 6 million. It's a very hard thing to do. Right? That's a lot of growth. Think about it.
mm.
You just made
Yeah,
$1 million, you got to make three next year.
yeah, yeah.
And then people are realistic because you can't just triple forever. I mean, some companies do it, maybe OpenAI or something. Then you double. So then you go from 6 to 12 and 12 to 24, just again as an example.
Mm,
And we've been fortunate to be on that trajectory and have a great set of venture capital companies join us on that journey. So our VCs, you can go find them on Crunchbase, our Forge Point Capital and Gula Tech Adventures and Nextera Energy and companies like that. So we've been really lucky. It doesn't help that we had successful founders that have done it before, right? So it's a combination of a couple different things.
mm. But by when would you cross, let's say, a 10 million ARR?
Yeah, already there. I mean, that's
Oh,
that's
wow.
yeah.
Amazing. Okay, amazing. And what's your plan for India? Like, uh, do you see that the One Cosmos name by itself getting recognition in India by virtue of, like where companies are asking people to use One Cosmos to sign in, or like, what do you think the Indian market is going to be like?
Yeah, there's India is a great market for us because we my founder Heyman Vimalbalao is from Bombay, right? He doesn't let
Ah.
me say he doesn't let me say Mumbai, by the way. It's Bombay. You probably
Okay.
know why So we have a very strong presence there, and strong developments. So we've been there since the beginning. And we have some great partners there, like Hitachi Microsystems sells our products throughout India and the Asia Pacific region. And what's really helped is the Reserve Bank of India passed what the RBI Act in 2018 that says, here's some security guidelines. And so everyone went scrambling to say, oh, we need multi-factor and we happen again to be right place, right time. And that's really opened up the India market for us. So we're very optimistic about our growth rates in India.
Are you at liberty to tell me which bank it is that's using 1Kosmos?
Um, No, not the banks because they don't want anybody knowing the technology, so we have very specific non-disclosure. But there's one testimonial that's public out there from, Vodafone India. It's called Vodafone IDEA, right? It was a merger
Yeah.
between the 2 companies. Um, we had a really great success story there, and their CISO put out kind of a public thank you to 1Kosmos because we helped him solve some real security challenges that he was wrestling with. And, so that testimonial has been made
Yeah,
public.
and this is
So
for the employee login.
that's right.
Okay, okay, interesting. So, just to like wrap up our conversation, what are like some of the lessons that you can share with people who are aspiring to be founders and build businesses?
Yeah, there's a couple. There's, the exposure, right? So when you start a company, if you sit there in your bunker and you just write code and try to sell it to a couple people, you don't have the exposure. And so there's the challenge of you can make a great product that solves a great set of problems, but you don't have what's called scale. How do you then sell it to the first $1,000,000 or million people? And so that's in order to do that, you need one of the most important parts of any company is marketing. That's one thing that I've really come to appreciate being here at One Cosmos, and Heyman is a marketing junkie, and I geek out on marketing technologies like demand generation and creating a great website and just learning how to engage with people in different ways. And so those are really important for any startup, and it's just setting the right corporate culture out of the gate as well.
And that brings us to the end of this conversation. I want to ask you for a favor now. Did you like listening to this show? I'd love to hear your feedback about it. Do you have your own startup ideas? I'd love to hear them. Do you have questions for any of the guests that you heard about in this show? I'd love to get your questions and pass them on to the guests. Write to me at ad@thepodium.in. That's ad@thepodium.in.